Good afternoon and welcome to the Captive Power Series 2009. The first one was organized on the 14th of September in Raipur, Chhattisgarh. This is the second one which is being organized here in Bhubaneswar on the 16th of September. And with me I have the honor of welcoming one of India's top-notch lawyers in the energy sector, Mr. Sanjay Sen, who's partner with Praxis Partners. Welcome to the conference, Mr. Sen.
Thanks. Thank you very much.
So we'd like to know, given the fact that captive power producers face peculiar problems in the entire power sector in terms of mainstreaming the power, in terms of the captive power definition, what do you think are the three key challenges that captive power producers face, whether in setting up a plant? What kind of litigation problems do they face? What kind of regulatory environment do they have problems in?
The problems are primarily with the interpretation of the Electricity Act definitions and the rules. As you know, there are three structures, captive structures possible. One is a SPV, the other is a AOP, and the third is a society, a corporate society. The preferred structure among investors and lenders is a SPV. The law requires a 51% minimum consumption annually and 26% minimum equity holding in the SPV. This 26% can be held by more than one user of the captive power. The problem is when the captive power plant comes up and the user's facility has not come up in time. That is when there is a issue as to whether, because the user is not ready, this captive structure is a captive structure at all. These issues are normally raised by the licensees or agencies which feel threatened because the industrial consumers of the licensee, which is cross-subsidizing the other category of consumers, move away from the grid and go to the captive. So there is a resistance. So the resistance comes from these kind of technical issues, that they are not captive, therefore please load the surcharge, cross-subsidy surcharge. And if you load the cross-subsidy surcharge on the other users, because the question as to whether they're captive or not has been raised, the transaction cost goes up and it becomes unviable. So the user will resist buying that power and would prefer to go back to the grid. So these issues have arisen in Gujarat, in Madhya Pradesh, in Chhattisgarh. Issues have arisen as to when, let's say, one of the SPV members, the user, his plant shuts down because of economic reasons, depression, recession or whatever. And then that user who is a shareholder, he has to be replaced. And there is resistance in allowing him to be replaced, because they say, look, you have to be part of the initial setting up of the captive power plant. Therefore, the new guy who's going to come in and replace that user whose factory is shut down, that new guy was not part of the initial setting up and therefore cannot get the benefit of a captive consumption. So these are regulatory bottlenecks and challenges, but they are being addressed in a very positive manner by most regulators, because the captive has inherent advantages. You don't have to pay the surcharge, you get a priority in open access. So if you are able to declare a particular structure as non-captive, then these benefits or concessions are not available. So therefore this friction is there, but it's getting resolved.
Finally, sir, we'd like to know, given the fact that there are certain key sections in the Electricity Act which have been either used or misused by states to deny open access, such as talking about extraordinary circumstances, such as talking about appropriate government. Now, who is the appropriate government to decide whether it's an extraordinary circumstance and whether power should be retained in the state and sold to the state licensing?
I am clearly of the view that whether or not a direction under Section 11 is in public interest, that decision has to be with the appropriate government. What is public interest? Not only does Section 11 itself provide that the government will decide, in Section 108 also a similar language is used, but what is in the public interest of, let's say, Karnataka or Odisha, who else but the elected cabinet of the state can decide, because they are the elected representatives, they are answerable to the constituency, so they know what is in public interest. All that we can hope, and this conference has brought that out very clearly, is that when you are talking about public interest, you have to look at both the short-term interest and the long-term interest. The purpose of electricity reform was, one of the purpose was to overcome shortages, to encourage investment, to encourage stranded captive capacity to come to the grid. This was possible by reforming the sector, by delicensing generation, by allowing open access, by allowing trading as a distinct activity. Now, for purposes of shortages in the short term, if you take away these reform measures, then they have a long-term implication.
Right.
So, the purpose of the reform law, by introducing these instruments like trading, open access, delicensing generation, have now become the instruments which is being used to meet short-term shortages. There's a disconnect.
Right.
The long-term measures are being lost sight because of short-term gains, and I've always said in all conferences that open access is not a regulatory issue anymore, it's a political issue. It has to be addressed politically. Ministry of Power has to step in, sensitize the state governments. Maybe some strong arm initiatives are required from the Ministry of Power to tell states like Karnataka or Tamil Nadu that 11 is not the instrument for either overriding contracts or denying open access. But public interest decision always has to remain with the state government.